And welcome back to this Primetime Bulletin. It's been a developing story for the past 2 weeks, and President Jacob Zuma's future remains under discussion. Joining me now to help us make sense of the political impasse is political analyst Dumisani Hlophe from UNISA School of Governance. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. The political impasse continues.
Yeah, definitely. Sooner or later, if it's not resolved, it's going to become a crisis. And I think at this point in time, it's no longer about Jacob Zuma per se. It's about the ANC, its ability to lead itself, but also its ability to govern itself. Because the primary question that we are quickly encroaching into is, if the ANC is unable to lead itself, what are the chances that it can lead society and govern appropriately? So sooner or later it will be a crisis, and unless if this weekend is resolved.
Is it a fair comment to make that the ANC, how do we then say that would the ANC be able to lead society, considering that it's only been, just over 6 weeks or 8 weeks since Cyril Ramaphosa's election, and there is this mounting pressure on Cyril to act as president of the ANC on...
Yeah. We need to make a distinction.
Yeah.
There's an event and there's an issue here. Yeah. The event is that Cyril has just been elected, and therefore there's some who think that Jacob Zuma must vacate the office and Cyril take over. That's an event. The issue is one of leadership, succession and management. And the ANC here has been found wanting in terms of managing its succession and leadership succession and the management of its deployees, in government. So what we are witnessing is that gap, is that failure that over time the ANC has not been able to lead itself in terms of succession, but then also it's a sign, or not even a sign, it's a disease of the weakness of the center from managing its deployees that in government. So this is why President Zuma can say that, look, hang in there, I'm not leaving now, because it has not mastered the art of managing its deployees.
So it's not really about Jacob Zuma, the person, but it's also about how the ANC deals with this.
It's the failure of the organization to be strong at the center. What is happening now, you will never see it in the Communist Party of China. The center is strong, and therefore any deployee from the party has to toe the line.
Let's just quickly listen to what Gwede Mantashe had to say earlier on today when he was speaking at Bud Plus, speaking about what he calls undue pressure on Cyril Ramaphosa to act, and saying that the journalists as well as analysts should back off.
If President ANC uthi ndilindeni, I'm still talking to President Jacob Zuma, there's no need yokumthuka.
And this is on the basis that some have been saying that Cyril Ramaphosa is probably a lame duck, and some saying, well, the words that I can't use here, that he hasn't been, decisive enough on acting on this issue.
He hasn't shown that thing.
He hasn't shown that thing.
Look, Aljan, I actually disagree with that view for two particular reasons. Number one, the ANC is a slightly fragile organization. You can't have Cyril as a new leader who comes in and then gets into the leadership saddle and start cracking the whip. It doesn't work like that. The first thing that he ought to have done, which he has done pretty well, is to take over and reach out to the camp that had lost and build that unit. And secondly, if there are calls to remove President Zuma, he cannot simply instruct him to leave. He has to demonstrate that by the time it happens, he followed all the rules and processes as defined within the ANC. I think the challenge now is that the issue of the removal of the president, it has gone beyond the confines of the ANC. It is now a national matter, it's a society matter, and therefore the pressures upon Cyril, they are also inspired by the fact that his very own campaign, it was about change and cleaning up the ANC. But then I am not convinced that he must just get in and behave like George Bush and start, or Trump for that matter.
But then, just in closing, what could be that stumbling block that is not bringing us to finality in terms of, because now we know for a fact, after we've heard Paul Mashatile speak about this, that the ANC wants President Jacob Zuma not to deliver the State of the Nation address. So what is this stumbling block?
Well, there's only one person who can answer that question, not even Cyril, it's President Zuma himself. The question is, what is it that under so much pressure makes him refuse to leave? He's the only person who can give us a credible leak on why he is still sitting there. But at the end of the day, It comes down to the center that does not hold, which is weak, which is being told by a deployee that I'm leaving. A very strong center of the ANC would have easily instructed him to leave.
And if that deployee does leave, does this mean that we could see, like we did back in 2008, some of senior ANC members who are also cabinet ministers leaving their employment?
Look, my sense is that given that this is reaching some kind of a crisis about government, because remember now government is a standstill, no State of the Nation address, and we can even doubt whether the budget speech will take place on the day that it's set for, or even doubt whether Malusi Kigaba will be the one to deliver that, the budget speech. So from where I'm sitting, he can't be the only one to be leaving. So there are two options. It could be that other ministers will resign, or alternatively, they will be reshuffled. But the change will go beyond the person of President Zuma.
Well, thank you so much. There we have from political analyst Dumisani Hlophe. And quite importantly, though, is that the ANC's top six is meeting, and whether that outcome will be communicated this evening or even tomorrow when we have Cyril Ramaphosa will be addressing the Nelson Mandela Centenary celebration.